Hello, everyone. This is going to be, I hope, a good discussion. Uh, First of all, we have four gentlemen who have asked to be president of the country. And interestingly, for me, I think it's a better kind of way of doing it, because the fewer the people who are contesting for the presidential position, then the easier it is for people to be able to make a decision. But at the same time, you are in a situation where people are 2 3 days to the election and people are still unsure of who to vote for. And this live stream is not necessarily to tell you who to vote for, but to help you be able to see some things. And for me, it's also for me to be able to see some things that these people are promising, and let you decide whether something is feasible or not. I know many of them are right now just doing their final push towards people to vote for them on Tuesday, and today is on Thursday, so they have up to Sunday, I believe. And that will be the last day for them to be able to actually tell you, vote for me, this is the reason why. So at the moment, I have 3 manifestos, 2 detailed ones because I searched for them in PDF format, and 2 are available. The other 2 are news articles, really, because I searched for the manifestos for these other 2. I couldn't find them, but we get to start. So the very first one that I'll start with at this particular moment is, just a second so that I can be able to share it with you. And I can be able to share that. Let me click on share screen, and then it's a Chrome tab. So I'll start with this one, so we can be able to have a look at it. Just go up to the top. This is the one for David Morin. Now, David Morin is the head of the Agano Party, and I'll just go through a summary of his points, and then we can be able to see exactly what he is promising, and you will let me know in the comments whether these things are feasible or not, and that will be it. So I'll go through them, and allow me just to go check on my phone so that I can be able to see comments when they come in. I think that's really important. Let's see. Just 1 second. Let me make that like that, and then just place that here. So when your comments come in, I'll be able to see them because I'm going on a different screen. So the first thing is, this is from July 4th, and the Agano presidential candidate, David Moure Waihiga, has 12 pledges. He calls them 12 Aganos. So the first one is to the Constitution, the second is to the family, the third is to the youth, the fourth is people living with disabilities. Let me put this. people living with disabilities. That's a fourth one. And then the fifth has to do with county governments. The sixth has to do with workers. The seventh is business owners. The eighth is the economy. 9 is religious institutions. 10, the environment, and then the international community. I don't know if those are 12 or 11. But his running mate is Ruth Mutua. And he says that revenue allocation to counties will be 40%, designate 10% of the 40% to go directly to village councils. So that's about 4% of the revenue. Then he intends to convene a task force to study the possibilities of dissolving Nairobi County after this election, so that after 2027, the Nairobi governor should be an appointee of the president after the election and an automatic member of the cabinet. In his plan for Kenyan workers, he has planned a general waiver of 50% of pay as you earn, as well as a conducive environment for the private sector, individuals, and others to set up businesses in a bid to boost entrepreneurship. And then in his manifesto, the aspirant plans to move the Asset Recovery Agency to the presidency, devolve the budgeting to the village councils as opposed to the Treasury or State House Budget Office, and go after the big fish of corruption and ensure they are subjected to the due process of the law. Then he intends to also create a legal framework that will ensure the public sector audit general are prima facie evidence in abuse of office and misappropriation of funds. He said he'll ensure the 15 trillion that has been stolen and stashed abroad is returned to Kenya in consultation with the concerned countries where these funds are. Then his government will also limit the total loan repayments by the government to 1 trillion. This will immediately release 350 billion to support government programs, and he'll urgently call a meeting of the lenders to arrive at a fresh repayment plan to ensure the country does not fall into debt distress. Then he also said that all contracts starting with SGR, the expressway, the ports, Mombasa, Lamu, Naivasha, Kisumu, will be made public under his administration. And his government will also provide an office for the registrar of families and use the data collected for the Huduma number to refocus government planning to be family-centered. Then he will ensure that each registered family has at least one person who is employed, and roll out the universal healthcare coverage program based on disease and demography. Priority will be given to cancer, accident, and all form of medical non-elective surgery. He has also promised to waive medical bills for any person who dies in a government hospital, and all old persons above the age of 70 years will get free medical services in his government. And he will also introduce community policing starting from the village council level. And he has promised to implement the 2/3 gender rule in all appointive positions and ensure AGPO reservation to youth, women, and PWD to 40%. Currently, it's 30%. Then his pledge to business owners is that his administration has promised to verify all county and national government pending bills and convert them to government bonds. Then the local content bill will be enforced to ensure that all tenders below 1 billion are exclusively awarded to local companies. And then he will enhance the AGPO reservation limit from the current 30% to a high of 50%. He'll also do away with the need for an AGPO certificate as well as tax compliance certificate for government tender application and empower all government agencies to make payments after deducting taxes applicable. Then he'll waive all standing tax penalties upon assuming office. He'll employ all clergy of registered churches as alternative dispute resolution officers in the same way that we have Qadis. Then work towards a constitutional amendment to separate religion from state or cure the unequal treatment of religions by the 2010 Constitution. Then you'll also ensure that KCCB, NCCK, EAK, or AICK are members of the Nairobi Center for Arbitration and designated chairs of this center. All clergy from registered churches to be trained in alternative dispute resolution as government officers. Then he'll introduce a pollution tax on users and manufacturers of any type of plastic items. Then he'll also reserve garbage collection to companies owned by youth groups in villages appointed by village councils. KPLC to divest to distributing off-grid solutions like solar and wind turbines, and then respect and defend the Constitution of Kenya 2010 and guard against attempts to mutilate it through unprocedural amendments. That is the manifesto of Waihiga Mwaura. And the interesting thing about it is I actually really tried to search for his manifesto, the full manifesto. I couldn't find it. And that is sad because I went onto the site as well to be able to try and get it, but I was unable to get. But what actually stood out for me from his manifesto, and I'm really doing an over summary here, is the first is just the Agpo reservation limit. For me, I think one of the biggest things is just moving to implementation, because in the current government, the reservation limit for Agpo is 30%, but then the bulk of Agpo reserved tenders are still not being taken by the youth, and even those that are taken by the youth still go through the whole process of having to wait for a very long time for payments and things like that. The bar is set too high even for Agpo, and you'll find that they are not really being given priority when it comes to the tenders that are there. So that for me, I think, is one of the things that people really have to watch out for. So we'll go to the second one, which is by George Wajakoya, and it's the Roots Party. This is their manifesto. So we'll go through it just in summary as well, so that we can get to the other two, because those ones are a bit more detailed. And when you look at it, so the first thing is the Roots Party is their slogan is Tingiza Mti. The presidential candidate is Professor George Wajakoya, and he has a 12-point manifesto. I know it has been in the news a lot, but I would love to go through it just to be able to see exactly what he says. So when it starts, it's talking about the Freedom Manifesto, and the first of his 10 commandments of freedom, he says that, let me just see if we can do that. That will be a bit better so that people can be able to see. I think that should be better. So the first is on legalization of bang. So the first is we will legalize bangi. 1 acre of bang is 16 million Kenya shillings per year. So the Roots Party will make enough money from bangi to pay off Kenya's debt in 1 year. taxes collected from Bangi will fund Kenya's entire budget at 3.3 trillion. That's just a summary of what he says as the first. Then the second has to do with farming of snakes. One test tube of snake poison is venom, really, is 600,000 Kenya shillings. We'll use snake farming to fund our education budget. That's number two. And number three is we'll export dog meat. 1 kg of dog meat is 6 times more than the price of a kg of goat meat. Roots Party will legalize the export of dog meat. Number four, we will hang the corrupt. People found guilty of corruption and stealing public resources will be sentenced to death by hanging. Number five, we will suspend the constitution. Parts of the constitution that do not work will be suspended. Roots Party will ask the people what they want. Number six, we will shut down SGR. In its place, we will revive the lorry transport system. Number seven, we will work for 4 days. Kenyans will only work for 4 days in a 24-hour economy. We'll have a 3-day weekend. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday will be days of worship. Number eight, we will shift the capital city to Isiolo. Isiolo is at the center of Kenya and it has an international airport. That's the reason why he wants to move it. Then we'll create, that's number nine, we'll create 8 states. Roots Party will create 8 regional states. Each will have a federal government that will give every community power to make their own decisions. Number 10, we'll deport idle foreigners. Foreigners have taken jobs that Kenyans can do. Roots Party believes in putting Kenyans first. Roots Party will deport baseless foreigners in the first 100 days. So just looking at it, it says, snake farming has the potential to generate sufficient revenues to help offset the national debt of 8.4 trillion. They said they will offset the national budget, which stands at 8.4 trillion, with the debt ceiling that had been raised to 10 trillion. Then he invited the media houses, and then he says, just the next thing that he says, to pay Kenya's entire debt, to build 2 expressways in each county, a 200,000 shillings check to each Kenyan every year, no more borrowing in the future, and then to buy off Bill Gates and Microsoft in just 2 years. And these are some of the things that he says bank can be able to do for Kenya. And he said he'll weed out the corrupt. Freedom is coming, Wajakoya, free the Ndom, all this. Anyone caught or found guilty of stealing public money will be hung in public. No more Goldenberg, no more Anglo leasing, and no more Kimorer and Aror. So that's just simple. That's the 10. We've looked at all this, and that's the manifesto for George Wajakoya. Thank you, Gladys, for following. Let's be able to go to the next one. So the next one is right here. Let's see. This next one is the Azimio la Umoja Manifesto. We'll be able to zoom in just a little more so that you can be able to see exactly how it looks. So let's see. Just 1 second. There we go. So this is the Azimio La Umoja One Kenya Coalition Manifesto, and we're just doing a summary so that you can be able to make your own decision when it comes to Tuesday next week. So this is, he says, Mwamko mpya, plenty shall be found within our borders. So we'll just go through the highlights so that you can be able to see exactly what he's talking about. And just to start from here, so that you can be able to see where he's coming from. He does afford as well, advocate that you go through it as well. And he says this is about hard work. This is about restoring dignity. This is a fresh start. His vision is a fresh thrust into rebooting our country, one not just occasioned through the electoral cycle, but one that heralds a new and distinct way of governance. What we are a part of is something much more triumphant, an awakening of the people. We are most fortunate to witness yet another rare moment in history when we get to experience what can be achieved when citizens in common bond united coalesce around an idea, and especially an idea whose time has come. So we'll actually go through the executive summary of the manifesto. It's a large document. It's about 43 pages, but we can be able to go through a number of them. So the highlights of this Azimio covenant with Kenyans include, number one, achievement of double-digit economic growth rate through manufacturing as an engine for creation of wealth and employment. Secondly, growing and supporting the micro and small medium enterprises, including Juakali sectors, as drivers for Made in Kenya initiative. And third, creating an enabling environment for climate smart agriculture, for improved livestock farming, and for growth of the blue economy. Number four, mainstreaming and harnessing ICT towards a digital economy. Five, improving the ease of doing business by making our country an attractive investment destination to both local and international investors. So these five that I've read for you are how he is planning to achieve double-digit economic growth rate. So the first is manufacturing. The second is an initiative called Made in Kenya Initiative for the Juakali. The third is an environment for climate smart agriculture. The fourth is harnessing ICT towards digital economy. And the fifth is improving the ease of doing business. So that's the first. Then the second is zero tolerance to corruption. The third is a commitment to addressing the high cost of living of all Kenyans. Number four, free education for all. Number five, universal quality healthcare for all. Then number six, food security, safety, and nutrition for all. Number seven, making every Kenyan feel secure and safe at home in communities, rural areas, towns, and cities. Number eight, provision of sports and recreation facilities for emotional, physical, mental, social, moral growth and development of people. Number nine, creating an enabling environment that fosters respect for faiths, cultures, and communities. 10, improved comprehensive foreign policy that would promote Kenya's political, social, cultural, and economic interests abroad. 11, promoting good labor relations and protection of the rights of workers. Number 12, promoting free and independent media as key elements of our democratic governance. Then he says, our vision for Kenya and the commitments articulated here encompass Utu in recognition of the inherent value, dignity, and sanctity of the life of each and every Kenyan. And then secondly, empowerment in celebration of the hard work of Kenyans and creating an environment in which their efforts will reap benefits and enable a decent standard of living. And number three, inclusiveness for all Kenyans across our great republic. All this is possible through economic revolution, social transformation, and good governance. He says, inawezekana, that is Raila Odinga. Then his running mate is Martha Wangari Karua. I'll just read just a sentence from what she has said. And I'll just speak this. She says, we seek office not for self-gratification, but from a deep sense of duty and commitment to our country to build on and advance the incomplete dream of transformation that is envisaged in our constitution. So there is quite a lot that they are talking about here. It's quite a big document as well, and I'd urge you to go through it, but just to be able to see, they have a 10-point agenda, which I'll just go through it just now, and we can be able to see, this is a table of contents, but we can be able to see the 10-point agenda that they have. So the first is to do with counties. So this includes increasing devolved resources and advancing a one county, one product program, which is premised on manufacturing and value addition as an engine for wealth creation and employment to achieve double-digit economic growth rate. The second is Azimio la Jitihada, which talks again about manufacturing as a driver for economic revolution, and the commitment they have is to support the growth of MSMEs, including the Juakali sector, through improved productivity and efficiency to spearhead the Made in Kenya product. So just the same thing that we just talked about. Then the third thing has to do with gender parity, Azimio la Kina Mama. Then there is one on ukulima, which is to generate agricultural bounty to feed the people of Kenya, called the Fukuza Njaa Agenda. Then Azimio la Viwanda, which is industrialization, Azimio la Wananchi, Azimio la Uwajibikaji, and Waste Not a Single Child on Education, Maji kwa Kila Boma, which is on water, and Baba Care, which is on health as well. That is just a simple look at the manifesto by Azimio, and just a small look at the last one, because it gets into much more detail as you go on. But just a look at agenda number 10. This will focus on social protection and transformation, and secondly, to upscale universal health coverage to universal health care. All citizens should enjoy the right to accessible, quality, and affordable health care. Then, as regards to social protection and transformation, there will be the Inua Jamii, which is currently running, but probably will be changed a little, so that it will be able to deliver 6,000 per month to each of the 2 million most needy and vulnerable households. And he says this is not a handout, it's an investment and a foundation for new transformational value chain that will also trigger economic activity and create thousands of localized small-scale businesses and enterprises across the country. And it will also help to create jobs and the development of a thriving middle class. That is the manifesto from Azimio la Umoja, that is by Raila Odinga. And then we'll look at the other one here. This next one is the Kenya Kwanzaa plan, and it says bottom-up economic transformation agenda, and this is by the current Deputy President, William Ruto, and he says why I am running for president. So he says the election ahead of us is a pivotal one. We have 3 issues on the ballot, and how we make choices will determine whether Kenya marches forward or backwards. Their first agenda is to defend the constitution. And the second agenda, I'm looking for it, just a sec. 1 second. So he says, when elected president, he intends to empower the judiciary and the criminal justice system immediately as required by the Constitution. He will want neither the power to prosecute political opponents nor the means to shield his allies and friends. So the second agenda here is to institutionalize our politics, that is to end the personalization of political power and governance generally. And the third agenda here is jobs. Every year, 800,000 young Kenyans are joining the workforce after completing school, college, and university. And because the corporate sector is only able to employ 50,000, the others are frustrated looking for jobs, and he intends to do something about it. People are Kenya's most important resource. If half of them are not productive, then it stands to reason that the economy is like an engine firing only half the cylinders. So that is just a summary. I want to go to a summary of his agenda. So the first thing that he speaks about is why bottom up. And he says, fewer things have captured public debate in this election than the idea of bottom up economics. The Kenyan workforce is now in the order of 19 million people. Of these, only 3 million, under 3 million, are in formal jobs in both the public and private sector. And the private sector has employed 2 million and the public 900,000. The other 16 million work in MSMEs. And of course, there are various sizes of businesses in the MSMEs. And he says that their livelihoods can go from 100, 200, 300 a day. These are the kind of people that are in this level. And he says economic implications of being one or the other are an eye-opener. According to the KNBS data in 2016, licensed stabled MSMEs generated an operating surplus of 50,000 an employee a month, while those in the lottery economy generated 3,250. In other words, the workers in formal MSMEs were 15 times more productive than those who are at lower levels. There are many reasons for this, and the most readily apparent reason for, according to this, is the hostile environment that MSMEs operate that could not be better captured by the sight of street traders chased down the streets and bundled into lorries by the county authorities. So I'm just looking for where the solution is. But the core problem is access to capital. 43% of them started with a capital of 50,000 or more, while only 6.5% of the informal ones started with a similar amount. It takes capital to make labor productive. A farmer with oxen can plow 3 or 4 times more land a day than the one who only has a hoe, while the one with a tractor can plow 10 times more than the one with oxen. A motorcycle will increase the income of a young man without the harassment of county askaris from 200 bob to about 400 or 500 bob. The primary task of economic policy and development is to mobilize and influence the allocation of capital in the manner that it generates the most benefit for the country, including employment, equitable distribution of income, economic stability, adequate tax revenue, and foreign exchange earnings. So just to go a little down here, this is just an explanation of why they're doing bottom up. And he says Kenyans are rightfully skeptical of lofty promises and seemingly well-crafted plans that never get implemented. We have developed this plan well aware that it will stand or fall on the how question. There are 3 tests that a good plan must pass, namely prioritization, sequencing, and financing. And there are a lot of details on how they plan to actually do this. And he says the 5 sectors that are being prioritized here are agriculture, micro, small, and medium enterprises, economy, housing and settlement, healthcare, digital superhighway, and creative economy. And then delivery through the value chain approach is quite, prioritization is critical because resources are scarce and also because we do not have the capacity to do everything at once. This is just a small summary of exactly what is going to happen with the UDA manifesto. And I think it's important to note that the last 2 are very similar in form of what they want to focus on. In this country, there are specific problems that come up every now and then. The first has to do with agriculture, and the incoming president has to think of how to make agriculture sustainable, whether through the government actually doing it or the big players that are currently in the market to be able to produce more, and as well the people who are doing it at a smaller scale to be able to find the markets that they can be able to take advantage of. It's important to take care of agriculture. You'll keep hearing all through that agriculture is the backbone of this country. So if agriculture is not dealt with from a national policy level, then people at the bottom will actually suffer. So the first thing with agriculture, I feel for me, is fertilizers need to be readily available and affordable and equitably distributed. The second has to do with agreements with different countries when it comes to whether it is farm inputs, and the taxes on farm inputs needs to go away, which whoever comes in needs to take care of. The next has to do with export markets. These agreements with other nations need to be well publicized so that people can be able to see where opportunities are, whether you are a farmer or you're a broker or you're a trader in that particular sector, in the agricultural sector. You need to be able to know exactly where to go. And these agreements need to ideally be in favor of Kenyans and not just the other trading party. That's the first. Agriculture needs to be taken care of. The second has to do with business, the ease of doing business, access to finance. In the current government, there's been the regularization of interest rates. I know that may go away in the next government, no matter who comes in, because there's a lobby by banks to go to a risk approach. This will most likely enable banks be able to lend a bit more, but at the same time, Kenyans also need to be protected when it comes to access to finance. There is quite a lot that has happened right now when it comes to digital lending, and there are very many predatory lenders that are still operating freely in the country. Biggest problem is the fact that some of them are even backed by politicians. That's neither here nor there, but this predatory lending needs to go away. People need to be protected. If you're going to borrow, you should have a reasonable amount that you're being asked to give back. That's on the same. Then the next has to do with young people. And you'll keep hearing the song about youth representation here and there, but there needs to be a serious look at how you can be able to empower young people. For me, it feels very disingenuous when people who are employed and are in their 50s and their 60s are always telling young people to look for businesses to do when they themselves are not in business. That seems very disingenuous. You should provide an environment where a young person does not have to be told to choose business, but they want to choose business because they can be able to clearly see where the benefits are. That for me is something that's really important. And so many politicians play a lot of lip service to young people, and yet young people are, in truth, the biggest population in the country. And this essentially means that we should be able to provide a framework, provide a guide as to how people can be able to make use of different government facilities to be able to further themselves as young people. That, I believe, is some of the things that, as we choose who will become our fifth president, of the four people that I've read you their manifestos in summary, as we are going to choose these people, we need to think about who do we think has the better plan, who do we think has the better way of implementing this particular plan, because believe me, once we have the president who will come in, I will have now gone into what did they say they will do within the short term, the first 100 days, and be able to go look at it after 100 days and see, this is what you promised us, have you done it? And let them be accountable, because manifestos are good, but if they are not implemented, then they're not helping anyone. We've gotten so many promises as Kenyans, but we now need for them to actually take the step and make sure that the plans that they are saying they are going to execute, that when they get into office, they'll actually go ahead and execute those manifestos. That, I think, for me, will be the biggest game changer of all. That the next president who actually comes in will be someone who goes and looks at this piece of paper that they've given us, that is a manifesto, and then they go ahead and implement it. Because if it is implemented, it will actually help. They say they have very good plans for whatever thing it is, but it is important that they go ahead and implement those plans. As you go out and vote, my fellow Kenyans, I just want to wish you all the best, the peace that you can ever have. The people who are vying right now for presidency, just know they're looking for a job. And it is important that you realize that whatever they are doing, first of all, they're doing for themselves because they're looking for a job. But secondly, they are there to become our servant leaders. And as we go into 2022, up to 2027, we should be thinking of how can we keep these leaders that we are going to vote for on Tuesday, how can we keep them accountable? How can we ask them this very hard questions? This is what you told us you will do. Why haven't you done it? You are in this position of power. This is what you expected to do. You need to do it. Let us keep peace at the places where we will be. Let us enjoy ourselves with this one-day holiday that we'll have. Whether your candidate wins or does not win or someone else wins, that's not an issue. At the end of the day, you have a business to run, you have a job that you have to do. It is important that you continue with your civic duty of just becoming a peace-loving Kenyan and treat your neighbor well. We do not want any issues with anyone because at the end of the day, this is just an interview that people are going through. And of course, one person will have more votes than the other. It doesn't matter who it is. All these people are just friends wherever they are, and they are not going to fight. So you and I should not fight so that these people can lead. But if you want, just go to the very start of this live stream and you can be able to see the manifestos of these four people who want to be your president. I'll see you in the next one.